Hello everyone, I'm Ben, this is Books with Bengus Khan, and I have a video I've been thinking about doing for a while, which is a roundup of 2022 fantasy and science fiction new releases. So just a little background on this. For the last 4 years or so, when I got back into fantasy as an adult, I've just been churning through really big, popular, completed series and trying to catch up on lots of popular authors and see what's going on in the modern genre, and I've been having a blast with that. But this year, I wanted to try something different. I wanted to try reading lots of newer authors, maybe some debut authors, some new book ones in series, and get on those fandoms kind of at the start and kind of see them grow over time, or wait in suspense for new books to get released, and all that good stuff that comes with loving new authors, including supporting authors when their books get released through hardcovers, which I know are the most profitable for authors and their publishers, and they encourage them to keep going and release future books in the series, and for publishers not to drop their authors. And so I wanted to kind of help support a bunch of new authors that way this year, and also just as an experiment, see what happened. The thing is, I am a really stubborn mood reader, and I probably got close to around 30 new releases, and I only read 10 of them. I have so many new releases that I wanted to read this year that I didn't get to, and I'll show you what those were, but I plan to try to read as many of them as I can in the next couple months so that I can know if I like those authors or those series and want to keep going and buy those book twos or the next books in those series as they get released. But instead of reading all those new releases, I get caught up in big series and just start new series just randomly. Like I got caught up in the Sharp series this year, and I think I'm on book 15 of 22 in that. I started A Song of Ice and Fire recently. I recently started The Expanse, and I'm now 5 books into The Expanse. I just get caught up in whatever's catching my eye in that moment, and it's hard for me to just stick to new releases as they come out if I'm not really feeling that at the moment. And so I just want to kind of get through as many of those as I can soon. But what I have for you is what I thought about the 10 that I did read. And I had a great, successful hit rate with these this year. Out of those 10, I really liked 9. So 90%, that's making me happy. One of them I actually despised and hated and ended up wishing I had never heard of it, never picked it up. So at the end of this video, I'm going to tell you which one of them that one was, and also which was my favorite new release of the year and has become, I think, one of my favorite reads of all time. But the other ones, I'll go through roughly in the order which I read them, and you'll see I loved all of these, and it's a great year for new releases. So, starting with Mickey 7 by Edward Ashton. So I saw this come up on Dominish Books, and it seems like kind of sci-fi. I like clone story, hence Mickey 7. This ended up having lots that I loved, including a sardonic, clever main character, POV, lots of clever problem solving that needs to go on, really emotional stakes as well. So in a small, hard sci-fi book, had everything I really want. It's a great little adventure, and it has sequels coming out. The next book, I think, coming out soon, 2023. Can't wait to pick that one up. And this one has got picked up by Hollywood to be a huge movie, I think, starring Robert Pattinson. So this might blow up at some point, but right now it's quite obscure with not that many ratings on Goodreads. So definitely check it out if you're into some fun, adventure, hard sci-fi. Next is The Justice of Kings by Richard Swan. This is such a solid new fantasy series debut. It just has a different feel than most of other fantasy that I've read. The main character is a kind of Judge Dredd figure in this secondary world. It's like a judge, jury, and executioner. They have magical powers to help them do that. But this world that they're a part of is really shifting politically, and this main character is in a really tough political spot starting towards the beginning of this book, and it's told from the perspective of the justice's apprentice, and just really well done. Loved basically everything about this. I am so hooked. Can't wait to see what's happening in book 2, because it seems like things are going to get pretty insane. Yeah, really awesome. Kind of like a legal thriller as well, which I don't see too often in fantasy. Here is The Daughter of Redwinter by Ed McDonald. This is the first book in the Redwinter Chronicles, I believe. And this one I just picked up on a whim. I think I saw Alan liked it, and this ended up being a really, really emotional, just cathartic kind of book one of a series with a protagonist who's kind of like this young adult female who's had to grow up really quickly due to some hard situations in her life, and she's put in a very tough situation. In towards the beginning of this book, there was a really intense, inciting incident, and then this character kind of ends up in a place that would be like a dream for them, but they're in a very passive position. And I was just able to empathize with this main character so much. I found it's had a lot of coming of age elements and a focus on complex kind of internal characterization that reminded me a lot of Assassin's Apprentice and Royal Assassin. So if you like Robin Hobb's character writing, I think there's a lot of similarities. The magic system in here too. There's something similar where there's multiple different kinds of magic, and the kind that the main character does is kind of a taboo in the society. That also really reminded me of what's going on in the Farseer trilogy. And so a lot, if you like Farseer trilogy, if you like Robin Hobb, I think there's a lot here that you might like. Some very complex romantic and sexuality stuff in here that I don't see too often. Just really, really stunning book one. Can't wait for book two of this one as well. Then there was this Sun Eater novella, Queen Amid Ashes, by Christopher Rocchio. So I really like this. The problem was I had sped through Kingdoms of Death, all 4 books of Sun Eater, earlier in the year. I couldn't wait to read this after Howling Dark, because it just hadn't been published in time. But I really wish I did, because this takes place after book 2, and that is when you should definitely read it. And the state of the galaxy and what the main characters had gone through had changed so much by the end of book 4 that coming to this was a little bit anticlimactic and didn't have as much impact as it would have otherwise. So yeah, if you're going through Sun Eater now, definitely read Queen Amid Ashes after book 2. Really solid story. Great writing, as always, with Christopher Rocchio. Next, I picked up Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. This one absolutely blew up and got picked up by Tor, and I don't need to add to the chorus of praise for this, but I ended up really enjoying this. It's a misconception that this book is just like completely cozy fantasy and the tagline, novel of high fantasy and low stakes. That makes it seem like it's just people setting up a coffee shop or hanging around, bonding and singing Kumbaya. But there's actually lots of high stakes for the characters in here. I found this book to be quite suspenseful. It's just not world-ending stakes like usual, but kind of more like a small-scale kind of TV series that focuses on just characters trying to make their way in a new place or in a new town or starting up a business. Like, there's still really, really heavy, high personal stakes going on. And so, yeah, there's more drama and suspense in this than you might think, and really worth picking up. And I'm so interested to see where this goes. I think he's writing a prequel novel that might get released next year, so definitely going to pick that up. Then I have my biggest surprise of the year with new releases, which is Babel by R.F. Kuang. I adored this book, and I was definitely not sure how it was going to go down after I really, really disliked books 2 and 3 of the Poppy War trilogy. But this one, I thought the subject matter, it being set in the real world, kind of being more like urban fantasy or historical fantasy, and in a setting that the author was very personally familiar with too, Oxford. I just felt like this writing was more personal and just hit me in a way that the Poppy War trilogy didn't, and the characters felt much deeper to me and more complex. I loved the real world themes. Yes, they are heavy and they do pound you over the head, but with some of these themes, I think that is appropriate and necessary sometimes, and that was the point of this story, and I just got so caught up in it and ended up really loving it. So yeah, Babel, huge hit with me. Can't wait to see what R.F. Kuang does next. Another pleasant surprise was how much I enjoyed Dead Man's Hand by James J. Butcher. That is the debut urban fantasy book by Jim Butcher's son. I'm a huge mega Dresden Files fan, but I haven't tried much other urban fantasy, and I was just curious what Jim Butcher's Son would do. Would it be very similar to the Dresden Files? Would it be totally different? And I found that James J. Butcher really creates his own path here and does something that feels very different in tone from the Dresden Files. The world building's very different, the magic's very different, the main character is completely different. It's written also in third person with multiple POVs, and just really refreshing, fun, lighthearted, but still high stakes urban fantasy, and that I'm hoping will kind of open up and get a little bit more epic as the series goes on. But really great, fun book one. Glad I got this one. And if you're interested in more urban fantasy, check Dead Man's Handout. The most recent new release I read was The Lost Metal by Brandon Sanderson. I have a separate review of this on the channel. I'm not going to go into this, but I love the way Brandon does endings of books, of series, and I did not like at all the beginning of this. I thought it started way too slowly for me, but really loved the middle and ending parts, and ended up getting pretty emotional as the series came to a close, and just did everything that I needed it to. I know it's not for everyone, but pretty much a wonderful read for me. So yeah, enjoyed The Lost Metal. Was not a disappointment. Now, to my number one best new release read of 2022. Drumroll please. It is Ogres by Adrian Tchaikovsky. So this is a novella. It's a pretty small book, only like about 150 pages. But man, thinking back on it, I feel like this has to be longer. It had so much substance, so much happened in this. This is just my kind of book. It's fast-paced all the way through from beginning to end, high stakes, really intricate, suspenseful plotting. I could not predict what was going to happen. Some really crazy plot twists are constantly happening throughout this. And it left me thinking a lot too. It was very thought-provoking. It has very interesting real-world themes. And I don't even know what genre this is. I could say what genre I think it is, but I don't want to give any spoilers about this book. Go into it completely blind, not knowing a single thing about it. And hopefully it's easy to get a hold of. Maybe an ebook or audio. The hardcover, I think, was kind of like a limited edition, but a lot of people don't like buying hardcovers of little novellas, but this one is so good. And I even like the naked hardback has a little top hat on it, gold foiling. Love that. Also, I really like the cover too. It's very suitable for the book. This one blew me away. Adrian Tchaikovsky now I've read 12 books of his. I've really liked all 12. I can't wait to read everything else he's ever written. And he releases like 3 books a year, so I can't keep up with him, which is great because I really love his books. So, this takes me to the single new release I read this year that I did not like. Not only did I dislike it, I ended up hating it. I read every single word and page of this tome that is 817 large, packed hardcover pages long, and that is The First Binding by R.R. Virdi. Now, I know that there are some people out there who enjoyed this. I don't understand it, but I know some people have, so maybe you would try it and you wouldn't have the same experience I did. But I've also seen lots of people, everyone that I know in real life or online that has read it, has seriously disliked it or DNF'd it. And really, it does nothing well. I kept on thinking, okay, as long as we just get past this section, maybe the story it'll change. He's a young author writing his first big epic fantasy. Maybe it's just this beginning part that was not really doing it for me. But when it gets to this part, it'll get better. I'll get into it. And I kept on saying that to myself after every 100-page chunk. And then we get to that part, and then it's still utterly boring. And nothing interesting is happening. And I'm not growing attached to any of the characters. The world building here did not do much for me. The characters, we get a single POV, and by the end, I still didn't feel like I had a good handle on who Ari is. and what are the core tenets of his personality besides he loves oral storytelling and myths. He wants to create a legend of himself, but then he also wants to keep hidden and stay unknown. He's very confusing. And also the side characters, there's many side characters throughout, and I felt like most of them did not really vividly jump off the page as real complex people. Most of them just stayed cardboard cutouts and plot devices. The ideas are thrown around here extremely superficial or just lacking substance. Ari's constantly delivering words of wisdom to the reader that did not ring to me as wise. Yeah, there was zero I liked about this book. I kept up through the end thinking, okay, I like endings generally. At least there's going to be maybe a climactic sequence and an exciting, suspenseful moment. There wasn't. There was an utterly anticlimactic, ridiculously dumb ending that made no sense to me and set up a series that I do not care where it goes. So I'll not be picking up the next book. And I tried it in print. I tried doing it in audio to see if that made it better. It didn't. His audio narrator had a very annoying voice for Ari, the main character, but he also did really changed annoying voices for women and child characters, which there are a lot of. And so let me just give you a taste of what this audio is like. So this is a real audible sample, and so you might know if this book is for you. So here we go. Oh, Ari, you're so manly and mysterious. Oh, that's true. Let me come back and tell you the rest of my story later. Women, you can always hook them with a story. Seriously, that is what the audio experience of listening to the first binding is like. Unpleasant and not rewarding. And yeah, I don't think many people would really enjoy this. So that was not a big hit. Yeah, Ari is just full of those asides where he thinks he's delivering groundbreaking wisdom, where he's really just generalizing about people in a way that does not seem right. And there's really weird stuff generalizing about women. That's probably the worst of it. But it's like that throughout the book, where he's just commenting on all these different things, and you feel like you are becoming maybe a dumber or worse person because of it. So yeah, not great. But if you're going to read new releases, then you got to experiment, and some of them might not work. You just got to hope that they're not massive tomes that are preventing you from reading multiple other books that you might also like. So that's the danger, but 90% hit rate, still really great. And I have all these other new releases that I want to try soon. So I'm going to show you a bunch of these. Tell me which of these you've read, which of these you've liked. All right, so these are the ones that I got that I want to read soon. Here's Engines of Empire by R.S. Ford. We have another Tchaikovsky, that's City of Last Chances. Then there's some self-pub, Von Roycroft's The Severing Sun. Empire of Exiles by Aaron Evans. This one's kind of blown up in the self-pub community. Tiago Abdullah's A Touch of Light. Love the covers on these. And book 2's coming out soon, so I'm going to get on this one. Brian McClellan's In the Shadow of Lightning. Really mixed reviews on this, so I've never read any McClellan before. I'm very interested where I will come down. There's Flames of Mira by Clay Harmon. Love the cover. Some really interesting world-building things, like an underground kind of society. Then there is Fairy Tale by Stephen King. Mixed reviews for this one. This is no rush to read a standalone Stephen King book, so I'm not sure when I'm going to get to that. The Children of Gods and Fighting Men by Shauna Lawless. The Brothers Gwyn have raved about this. I definitely need to try this one soon. Here's Daniel Abraham's Age of Ash, first book in the Kithamar trilogy. And book 2's coming out soon, and I really need to get to this to see if I'm going to continue. And then The Art of Prophecy by Wesley Chu. So Elliot Brooks really raving about this. This is out of the normal kind of domain of what I usually read, a very East Asian inspired kind of story, and very excited to try something different. So those are all the 2022 releases I want to get to soon. I hope you enjoyed learning about everything I read or plan to read. Let me know which of these you ended up really loving, which you didn't really like. I'll be interested to see what you thought. and I'll see you later.